Hey students, I hope you're doing well. I apologize for how I sound. I'm a little under the weather this week, but wanted to give you a little bit of feedback from what we did last week and then really start talking about drafting this essay. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is your annotated bibliography feedback. Last week, you submitted your brainstorming and one article and summary out of the five that you'll be expected to turn in. And I want to remind you that that is due this Wednesday. And as I was going through those, I just saw some issues that I want to bring to your attention. So again, there's two parts of the annotated bibliography. There is the source entry, the citation, and then there's also the summary. So I want you to remember first MLA format compliance. Make sure that you have a title at the top center of the page. For the purposes of this class, it needs to say annotated bibliography. I also want you to keep in mind that everything should be double spaced. That includes your source entry and your summary. And you also need to be using Times New Roman format. Just a couple small errors. A lot of you have article titles as well as journal titles. Quotation marks should be around your article titles, and italics are in major works such as journal titles and databases. Keep in mind that if you reference articles in your summary, those need to have quotation marks. And if you reference journal articles, or excuse me, journal titles, those need to be in italics in your summary as well. So just make sure that you have consistency there. For your summaries, a lot of you are doing a great job of summarizing the work, but a lot of you are neglecting to share the accuracy of the work. What this means is saying things like, this is from a well renowned journal that was just published last year, or this author has also had multiple publications. Make sure that you talk about why this article should be considered valid. What makes it different than Facebook? What makes it different than just Googling something? Give some context as to why it's accurate. And then the most important thing that will cause you to lose a lot of points is share how you plan to apply the work to your essay and make sure that you get specific. Some of you are simply saying, I plan to use this in my research, and that's simply not enough. Make sure that you explain how it's going to apply to your research. Again, the annotated bibliography should have 5 entries, 5 source citations, and 5 summaries. After you complete that, we are going to head into drafting. Guys, this week we're going to concentrate on the introduction, and that's going to be due on Sunday night. But I want to go over just a couple key concepts with drafting. Review the feedback that you get on your outline. You will receive that feedback by Tuesday, and I want to be sure that you review it because some of you, I can tell through your brainstorming, you're not narrowing your focus enough. So I want to make sure that you review your outline, particularly your thesis statements, and make sure that you have a narrow enough focus before you begin your rough draft. Remember that drafting does not mean perfection. My expectation is that you're going to get this down on paper and that I'm going to offer you some feedback. However, this does not mean that I expect every comma to be in place, every capitalized letter. Please remember that it does not mean perfection. And then finally, review all components for each paragraph. Last week, we went over what each paragraph should look like in each part of the essay. And just make sure that the key ingredients for an introduction are present. The key ingredients for a body paragraph are present. That's really important just to ensure that you're on the right track. So I also want to go over this introduction, and we went over this in last week's lecture materials, but I just want to bring it back to your attention as an example before we start on that this week. It's often referred to as a calling rather than a job, but K through 12 educators all over the world are talking about how their calling is becoming increasingly difficult. While teachers do their best to ensure that the best instruction is given in the classroom, There is a real possibility of sending children home with homework assignments to complete important concepts. While this seems like a simple notion, it is simply not. In rural communities everywhere, teachers cannot assume that their students have access to internet connections due to provider availability or even lack of sufficient funds. This leads to students becoming increasingly behind in their instruction, which leads to an overall lack of equity for students who live in rural communities with limited internet access. This is an issue that has been weighing on the mind of educational leaders all over the world, but it is also an issue that needs an immediate solution until there is resolve. While this is a massive systemic issue that cannot be solved by educators, elementary education has the opportunity to review its own processes to eliminate this issue of technology access. The solution to the lack of technology access is to create a computer laboratory study hall after school hours where selected teachers who desire a stipend to their pay have the opportunity to open a designated room for students to use their Chromebooks for 2 hours a day after the school day ends. What I want to draw your attention here when we're talking about components is I have my hook, which grabs the attention of the reader. I have background information to build into the problem. And then my thesis statement lists a very clear problem with a very clear solution that can be directly applied. So now that you see that, I want to give you a schedule of drafting. We're going to be drafting over the next couple of weeks. So your introduction is going to be due this Sunday. Your problem section, the proof of your problem, is going to be due on the 21st. Your solution section is going to be due the 25th. And your conclusion is going to be due the 28th. And then your final essay will be due on October 2nd. Guys, if you have any questions about this, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm always available to help you and read over your essay if that would benefit you, or if there's any concepts that you're not fully understanding. I hope this is helpful, and let's make it another great week.